The Galactic Council chambers hummed with the dull chatter of alien representatives. Holographic displays floated in the air, flashing statistics and projections that pointed to a single conclusion: the human threat was negligible. The council members, towering figures from various species, had convened to ratify the ceasefire agreement, convinced that humanity was on the verge of collapse. It had been a brief and brutal war, but the council believed it had gone on long enough. A reptilian representative leaned back in his chair, a smug expression on his face. "These humans are persistent, I'll give them that. But now they're broken. This ceasefire is merely a formality. They'll fall in line soon enough." Others nodded in agreement. The general consensus was that humanity's fire had been extinguished, their will to fight shattered by the overwhelming force of the Galactic Council's advanced armada. The ceasefire was a mercy, one offered out of boredom rather than necessity. "They are rebuilding," a voice said from the corner, one of the less prominent representatives from a minor faction. "They've taken this time to shore up their defenses." The room fell silent for a moment before breaking into laughter. "Rebuilding?" the reptilian scoffed. "Their ships are wrecks, their weapons outdated. Let them rebuild. It won't matter. They can't hope to match our firepower." But far from the eyes of the Council, humanity's true preparations were well underway. Earth was quiet, outwardly showing signs of a peaceful recovery. But behind the scenes, a relentless drive to improve, adapt, and strike back was in full swing. The so-called ceasefire was seen not as the end of the war, but merely a pause, a chance to refine strategies, rebuild infrastructure, and prepare for the inevitable resurgence. In a dimly lit war room deep within the heart of Earth's military command center, the leaders of humanity gathered. Data from the front lines was displayed on massive screens, and scientists and military strategists stood at attention as General Morgan surveyed the situation. "They think we're finished," Morgan said, his voice cold and measured. "But we're just getting started." His eyes moved across the room, landing on the engineers and scientists who had been working day and night to develop new technologies from the wreckage of alien war machines. "We've reverse-engineered their tech. Our scientists have cracked their energy shielding. We're making progress faster than they ever anticipated." A younger officer, standing at the back, spoke up. "Do they suspect?" Morgan shook his head. "Their arrogance blinds them. They think the ceasefire has neutered us. They're wrong. Humanity's capacity to adapt had always been its greatest strength. From the beginning, Earth's military forces had known that the Galactic Council was far more advanced. The initial stages of the war had been brutal, but every engagement, every skirmish had taught them more about their enemies. Every defeat was a lesson. Every fallen ship, an opportunity. "They don't see us coming," Morgan continued. "They've written us off as inferior, but in a few months we'll be ready to strike back. And this time, we'll be prepared." Meanwhile, the Galactic Council's spies had been watching, albeit from a distance. Reports trickled in about strange activities on Earth, but none seemed significant enough to warrant concern. Factories were being rebuilt, ships repaired, soldiers trained, nothing out of the ordinary for a planet recovering from a devastating war. But these reports missed the subtleties, the undercurrents of what was truly happening. In one corner of a repurposed military factory, a team of human engineers worked tirelessly on a new prototype. It was a ship unlike anything the galaxy had seen, sleeker, faster, and more deadly. Designed using the best of human and alien technology, it was a testament to Earth's ability to take what was broken and make it stronger. Back in the council chambers, complacency had settled in. Days passed, and soon weeks, with no major developments from Earth. It appeared that humanity had indeed accepted its place in the galaxy, a lesser species with no hope of challenging the great powers that dominated the stars. "There'll be no trouble now," one of the council members remarked casually over a shared meal. "They're rebuilding, yes, but slowly. By the time they're ready for any meaningful offensive, we'll have upgraded our fleets." Another representative nodded in agreement. "Their tech is centuries behind. If they try to come at us again, we'll crush them even faster this time." But Earth's true plan was far more ambitious than the Council realized. The ceasefire had provided the perfect cover for a strategic retreat, allowing humanity to consolidate its power and develop the technologies necessary to wage a far more effective war. While the Council was busy patting itself on the back, Earth's military was running simulations, testing new weapons, and preparing for a strike that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. General Morgan stood before his top commanders, a grim expression on his face. "We've given them the illusion of victory," he said. "Now we use that illusion against them." Humanity's strength had always been its ability to learn, to adapt under pressure. While the Council rested on its laurels, Earth was preparing for a new kind of war, a war of surprise, of overwhelming force, and of relentless persistence. The Galactic Council had underestimated the resilience of the human spirit, and soon they would pay the price. The ceasefire became a blessing in disguise for humanity. While the Galactic Council rested, Earth turned the brief respite into an opportunity to evolve. Hidden from the prying eyes of alien spies, massive underground facilities buzzed with activity. Every hour, teams of engineers, scientists, and military strategists pushed the boundaries of what had previously been thought possible. Reverse engineering the alien technology was the first priority, but soon Earth was doing more than replicating, they were improving. One breakthrough followed another. Human scientists cracked the core energy principles that powered the alien ship's shields, discovering ways to enhance them using Earth's own advancements. Alien plasma weapons were quickly studied, broken down, and improved upon. Within months, humanity had developed weapons that rivaled and even surpassed the Council's arsenal. And the humans did it quietly, under the radar, making sure the Galactic Council remained blissfully ignorant of the true scale of their progress. The rapid pace of these advancements was staggering. Factories, once damaged by alien bombardment, were now churning out upgraded spacecraft at a rate that stunned even the most optimistic Earth commanders. Soldiers, once armed with conventional ballistic weapons, now trained with energy rifles and personal shield generators. Technology only dreamed of before the war. But this wasn't just about new gear. Humanity's greatest asset had always been its capacity for creative problem-solving, and this time, they weren't just preparing for a fight, they were reinventing warfare itself. Earth's military forces had been decentralized, making them unpredictable. Fleets were no longer bound by the need for centralized command centers vulnerable to orbital bombardment. Instead, they employed a web of smaller, highly mobile units capable of coordinating attacks using advanced quantum communication systems, rendering the Council's jamming techniques useless. Earth's commanders knew the Council favored massive, lumbering ships, symbols of their dominance. But these ships had vulnerabilities, and humanity intended to exploit every single one. There was no grand announcement of Earth's new capabilities, no boastful display of strength. Instead, subtle disinformation campaigns were launched to lull the Galactic Council into complacency. Humanity's intelligence networks, strengthened by insights gained during the early war, leaked outdated and false information about their military production. While the Council saw old ship designs and low-grade weapons, Earth's shipyards were producing sleek, advanced war vessels. Ships designed with knowledge of every weakness the Council had exposed in their earlier attacks. In secret testing zones, new models of warships were pushed to their limits. These weren't just built for firepower, they were built for agility and adaptability. Human engineers had learned that speed and surprise would be their greatest weapons against the monolithic fleets of the Galactic Council. Fleets of smaller, faster ships were prepared to swarm the Council's lumbering giants, exploiting their slow response times and outdated tactics. No longer would humanity fight on the Council's terms. The ground forces, too, underwent a transformation. Special Forces units became the spearhead of Earth's tactical doctrine. These elite teams, armed with cutting-edge exoskeletons and nanotech-infused armor, trained in environments that mimicked alien worlds. They learned to blend into every terrain, trained to fight not just conventionally but asymmetrically. They studied their enemy's biology, learning how to exploit even the smallest weaknesses in the Council's various species. This wasn't about brute force, it was about precision, efficiency, and mastery of the battlefield. One particularly critical innovation was in cyber warfare. Humanity's computer scientists had cracked into the Council's systems during earlier skirmishes, learning their patterns and vulnerabilities. Now, they were prepared to launch devastating electronic attacks that could cripple alien fleets without firing a shot. Human hackers, operating from secure bunkers, would target the Council's communications and logistics, turning their most advanced technology against them. And the best part? The Council would never see it coming. Earth had transformed its forces into something the Galactic Council had never encountered before. No longer were they just another rebellious species to be crushed by overwhelming firepower. Humanity had become a predator, carefully planning its strikes and learning every nuance of the battlefield. The Council had relied too heavily on their perceived technological superiority, and now, that superiority was slipping through their fingers. The Council's arrogance was perhaps their greatest downfall. Even as reports trickled in about Earth's rebuilding efforts, the Council dismissed them as insignificant. They failed to grasp how rapidly humanity was adapting, how Earth was evolving not just militarily but strategically. To the Council, Earth was still the same small, war-torn planet, incapable of mounting a serious threat. But in reality, humanity was playing a long game. They understood that they could never win a traditional war against the vast might of the Galactic Council. Instead, they embraced guerrilla tactics, psychological warfare, and strategic deception. They knew that the Council would never expect humanity to strike so quickly after the ceasefire, and they intended to exploit that blind spot to its fullest. Humanity's military leaders, aware of the Council's rigid doctrines, built their strategy around unpredictability. If the Council expected a frontal assault, Earth would hit them with surgical strikes from multiple fronts. If the Council planned for a drawn-out engagement, humanity would use hit-and-run tactics, denying them the large-scale battles they preferred. Earth's commanders knew that the Council's strength lay in their numbers and sheer firepower, but their weakness was their inability to adapt. And that weakness would be humanity's key to victory. The Galactic Council had grown complacent, too used to their place at the top of the galactic hierarchy. They had fought countless wars, always with the same strategy: overwhelm their enemies with superior firepower and advanced technology. But humanity had proven to be different from their previous foes. Earth had not just endured the Council's onslaught, it had learned from it, adapted, and emerged stronger. As the final months of the ceasefire ticked away, Earth's military forces continued to prepare in silence. They knew the Council wouldn't expect them to be ready for war so soon. But the humans had been ready from the moment the ceasefire was signed. It was all part of the plan. Earth's leaders had played the Council perfectly, using the ceasefire as a smokescreen to build an army that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. This was no longer a war for survival. It was a war for dominance. And humanity had every intention of winning. The moment the ceasefire ended, humanity was ready. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing, just a swift, calculated strike. The first targets were the Council's outermost outposts, strategically chosen to cause maximum disruption with minimal risk. These stations, barely defended due to the Council's overconfidence, were overwhelmed within minutes. Human forces moved with precision, their new technologies allowing them to slip past alien defenses unnoticed. By the time the Council realized they were under attack, it was already too late. Outposts that had once served as key supply and communication hubs were now nothing but debris, floating in the cold void of space. The Galactic Council was caught entirely off guard. Their ships were powerful but slow to react, and their commanders, used to facing inferior foes, had no contingency for an enemy that struck with such speed and ferocity. Reports of the attacks flooded in from every sector, but the Council was paralyzed. They had assumed that humanity would take years to recover from the war, not months, and certainly not weeks. Now they were scrambling to make sense of the chaos that had erupted on their fringes. As the Council forces tried to regroup, humanity pressed the advantage. In a matter of hours, Earth's fleets had moved from raiding outposts to launching full-scale assaults on key installations. The alien fleets, while massive, were cumbersome, designed for drawn-out, large-scale engagements. They were ill-prepared for the human tactics that relied on speed, surprise, and surgical strikes. Small, Nimble human ships darted in and out of battle, striking vulnerable points before disappearing again into the darkness. It was warfare unlike anything the Council had faced before. In the first major skirmish between Earth's newly advanced fleet and the Galactic Council, the disparity in tactics became clear. While the Council's ships boasted superior firepower and defensive shields, they were slow to react and even slower to adapt. Human commanders had anticipated this, having spent the ceasefire period running simulations and analyzing every weakness in the alien fleets. Now, those simulations were playing out in real time, and the results were devastating. Humanity's fleets attacked in waves, never giving the Council time to regroup or form a coherent defense. One moment, Council ships would be bombarded with long-range missiles; the next, they were swarmed by smaller fighters capable of slipping through their shields undetected. It wasn't just a battle, it was a lesson in the consequences of underestimating an opponent. The Council had believed their technology would guarantee victory, but now that same arrogance was their undoing. The psychological impact of these defeats on the Council was profound. For the first time, they found themselves truly vulnerable. Their enemies weren't just retaliating, they were winning. Alien commanders, who had once sneered at the thought of human resistance, now found themselves scrambling to contain the damage. Communications were in disarray, with fleet commanders unable to coordinate effectively. The Council's usual tactics of overwhelming force were useless against an enemy that refused to engage on their terms. At the heart of the chaos, human commanders remained calm. Their strategy was working perfectly. They didn't need to win every battle, just enough to sow confusion and fear. Each victory, no matter how small, chipped away at the Council's morale. And with every engagement, humanity learned more about their enemy. Each skirmish revealed new weaknesses, new ways to exploit the Council's reliance on rigid strategies and outdated doctrines. Human soldiers, once considered vastly inferior to their alien counterparts, proved themselves more than capable of holding their own. The elite Special Forces units, armed with cutting-edge weaponry and enhanced with cybernetic augmentations, became a force to be reckoned with. Infiltrating enemy bases, disabling key systems, and sabotaging critical infrastructure, they struck terror into the hearts of the Council's ground forces. These soldiers didn't just fight, they adapted, learning from every encounter and becoming deadlier with each passing day. The Council, for all its size and power, had never faced an enemy like humanity. The humans weren't bound by the same rigid hierarchies or traditions that constrained the Council's tactics. Where the Council relied on sheer numbers and overwhelming firepower, humanity used innovation, flexibility, and an intimate understanding of their enemies' weaknesses. The Council's ships, no matter how advanced, were only as good as the strategies employed by their commanders. And those strategies were failing. In a desperate attempt to regain control, the Council called for reinforcements from their core worlds. Massive dreadnoughts, the pride of the alien fleets, were dispatched to crush the human rebellion once and for all. These ships were among the largest and most heavily armed vessels in the galaxy, designed to intimidate and obliterate any opposition. But as they lumbered toward the front lines, humanity was already preparing for them. Earth's fleets didn't engage the dreadnoughts head-on. Instead, they continued their hit-and-run tactics, targeting supply lines, communication relays, and support ships. The dreadnoughts, powerful as they were, became isolated and vulnerable, unable to operate effectively without the support of smaller vessels. Human commanders knew that the key to victory wasn't in defeating the dreadnoughts directly but in rendering them useless through strategic disruption. As the Council's forces continued to flounder, a growing sense of fear began to take hold among the alien ranks. Humanity was no longer seen as a nuisance to be swatted away, but as a legitimate threat, a species that had learned, adapted, and grown stronger in the face of overwhelming odds. The Council had underestimated Earth's resilience, and now they were paying the price. For the first time, the Council was forced to consider the unthinkable, that they might actually lose this war. Their fleets, once seen as invincible, were being outmaneuvered at every turn. Their commanders, once confident in their superiority, were now panicking as their forces crumbled under the relentless pressure of human tactics. The turning point came when a key Council fortress fell to a human assault. This fortress had been considered impenetrable, a symbol of the Council's dominance in the galaxy. Its fall sent shockwaves through the Council's ranks, shattering whatever illusion of invincibility they had left. The fortress wasn't just a strategic loss, it was a psychological blow that the Council would never fully recover from. As the human flag was raised over the ruins of the fortress, the message was clear: humanity wasn't just fighting to survive, they were fighting to win. And with every battle, every skirmish, they were getting closer to that goal. The Council, once so certain of their victory, now found themselves on the defensive, desperately trying to hold on to what little power they had left. Humanity had struck back, and they weren't stopping. The galaxy was changing, and the Council's reign was coming to an end. What had started as a desperate fight for survival had become something much greater, a fight for dominance, and humanity was well on its way to claiming that title. With the Council's forces in disarray, the final phase of humanity's plan was set into motion. The Galactic Council, once the ruling power in the galaxy, was now retreating, desperate to regroup and salvage their position. But humanity had no intention of allowing that to happen. The time had come to send a message, a definitive, unmistakable declaration of who truly held power now. The coordinated attacks had done their job, destabilizing the Council and pushing their forces to the breaking point. Now, humanity was ready for the final strike, one that would leave no room for doubt. Earth's military command had already prepared for this moment. Every battle, every skirmish, had been designed to weaken not just the Council's fleets but their will. It was no longer enough to simply defeat them in combat. Humanity needed to break the Council's spirit entirely, to make it clear that any attempt to continue this war would result in their total annihilation. The Council, though massive and advanced, had proven vulnerable in ways they had never anticipated. And now, those vulnerabilities were about to be fully exploited. As the Council scrambled to reorganize its forces, humanity launched a new offensive, this time targeting key systems deep within Council-controlled space. These weren't military outposts or supply lines. They were the political and economic heart of the Council's empire. By striking at these critical systems, humanity was sending a clear message: nowhere was safe. The Council had built its power on fear, using its massive fleets and advanced technology to keep other species in line. But now, the tables had turned. It was the Council that feared for its survival. Human fleets moved swiftly, cutting through the Council's remaining defenses with precision and ruthlessness. This wasn't the same war that had begun months ago. Humanity had evolved, and their tactics reflected that. While the Council continued to rely on sheer numbers and brute force, Earth's commanders utilized a different approach, one that combined technological superiority with psychological warfare. Each attack was designed to cause maximum disruption, not just to infrastructure, but to the morale of the alien leadership. The Council had always believed in their invincibility, and now that belief was being shattered piece by piece. The human forces, now bolstered by the technologies they had reverse-engineered and improved, tore through the Council's fleets like they were made of paper. Battles that would have once been drawn-out affairs ended swiftly, with human ships outmaneuvering and outgunning their alien counterparts. The Council had once seen humanity as primitive, but now, they were forced to reckon with the reality that Earth had surpassed them. It wasn't just about weaponry or tactics anymore, it was about domination. Humanity was no longer content with mere survival. They were aiming for control. As the Council's forces retreated further, a sense of panic began to spread among their leadership. They had never faced an enemy like this, one that adapted so quickly, fought so ruthlessly, and seemed to always be one step ahead. Every strategy the Council employed was countered, every defensive line broken. It was clear that the war had already been lost, but the Council, out of desperation, clung to the hope that they could still salvage something from the wreckage. But humanity had no intention of letting them off that easily. The final blow came not from a massive fleet engagement, but from a single message broadcast across the galaxy. Earth's leaders, standing before a coalition of military commanders and political representatives, delivered an ultimatum to the Council. It was simple, direct, and terrifying in its finality: surrender or be destroyed. The broadcast echoed through every system controlled by the Council, reaching the ears of alien leaders who had once mocked humanity as a lesser species. Now, those same leaders were faced with a choice: submit to the will of Earth, or face total annihilation. The Council had believed for so long that their power was unshakable, that no species could ever hope to challenge their dominance. But now, they were seeing the consequences of that arrogance. Humanity had not only challenged them, they had crushed them. The Council's response was fractured. Some members, still clinging to their pride, refused to acknowledge humanity's demands. They believed that the Council could still regroup, that their superior technology and resources would eventually turn the tide. But others, those who had witnessed firsthand the devastation wrought by Earth's forces, knew the truth. There would be no regrouping. There would be no second chance. Humanity had already won, and any attempt to continue the fight would result in the total destruction of the Council's remaining forces. In the end, the Council had no choice. They capitulated, though not with the dignity they had once flaunted. Their surrender was messy, disorganized, and filled with resentment. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that they had been broken. The Galactic Council, the once mighty rulers of the galaxy, had fallen to a species they had dismissed as insignificant. It was a moment that would be remembered for generations, a turning point not just in the war, but in the history of the galaxy itself. Humanity, however, did not celebrate. There were no grand parades or declarations of victory. Earth's leaders understood that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had changed, but it was far from being tamed. Other species, watching from the sidelines, would be emboldened by humanity's victory. They would see that the Council was not invincible, and they might rise to challenge Earth's new position of power. But humanity was ready for that. The battles they had fought against the Council had taught them more than just how to win a war. They had shown them how to survive in a galaxy that was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable. Humanity had become a force to be reckoned with, not through sheer strength alone, but through resilience, adaptability, and a relentless drive to succeed. The final transmission from Earth was brief but clear. "The galaxy has changed," it said. "We are no longer the prey. We are no longer the hunted. We are the ones who will decide what happens next. And if you wish to survive, you will remember that." The message was a warning, not just to the Council, but to every species in the galaxy. Humanity had risen, and they weren't going anywhere. The Galactic Council had underestimated them, and now they had paid the price. The future belonged to Earth, and anyone who dared to challenge that would face the full might of a species that had learned to thrive under pressure. Humanity was just warming up.